The War of 1812 was the last time American troops defended the United States, although thousands perished defending territory conquered by the American Empire. During this war, the Royal Navy blockaded American ports and British troops burned Washington, D.C., while some U.S. Navy ships were sent to protect American commerce overseas. Whaling was an important American industry, and its ships, called whalers, were being seized by the British. In January 1813, the frigate USS Essex, commanded by Captain David Porter, sailed to retaliate. The Essex became the first U.S. Navy ship to round Cape Horn at the end of South America and into the Eastern Pacific in February. For months, the Essex cruised the South Seas and captured a dozen armed British whalers. There was no bravery involved in these seizures. The Essex approached whalers flying British colors, and her armed crew boarded ships peacefully and announced its seizure. By October, the Essex was in need of repairs, and Captain Porter knew that British agents would report her presence if she docked for long at a South American port. As a result, Captain Porter sailed 4,000 miles west to Nuku Hiva, an island in remote Polynesia, with his fleet of 1 liberated American whaler and 9 captured British whalers. Captain Porter had over 200 U.S. Navy officers and sailors, accompanied by a detachment of 20 U.S. Marines under the command of Lieutenant John Gamble, with some volunteers captured from British ships, the other sailors having been set free at ports. After Captain Porter arrived in Nuku Hiva, he established America's first overseas colony that he named Madisonville, after President James Madison. A small Fort Madison with 4 guns was constructed on a nearby hill to become America's first overseas naval base. The sailors and paid locals scraped the copper-bottom hull of the Essex and used smoke to drive out over 1,000 rats hiding in her works. The Americans described the native warriors as being tall and copper-colored, with tattoos over their entire bodies. They wore loincloths, and some had capes made of tree bark and carried large clubs or spears. The women were clothed in similar fashion to the men and friendly to the sailors. An Englishman named Wilson was found living on the island and served as an interpreter between the Americans and the native chiefs. Nuku Hiva was inhabited by many tribes separated by mountains thousands of feet high. The land around Madisonville was controlled by a chief from the Tele tribe, who did not object so long as the Americans became allies against the nearby Hapa tribe. To comply, 40 Marines and sailors were ordered to accompany several hundred Tele warriors into the mountains. They dragged along a wheeled 6-pound cannon to blast the natives. They encountered some 3,000 Hapa warriors and attacked. The Hapa, armed with just spears and stones, were terrified by the American guns and quickly surrendered after 5 were killed. The chiefs of the Hapa agreed to peace and to join an expedition against a bigger tribe, the Typee. Captain Porter assembled his fleet alongside 200 native war canoes and landed a force of 5,000 men on the Typee coast. This tribe was fearless and battled for hours with the Tele and Hapas, while the Americans picked off enemy warriors with their muskets and cannon fire. The battle stalemated, and the Marines and sailors ran low on ammunition. 5 men were ordered to run back to the beach for a resupply as the situation deteriorated. The Typees counterattacked, and the Teles and Hapas fled, leaving the 36 Americans behind, who retreated back to their ship. The Americans lost 1 man killed and 2 wounded and sailed back to Madisonville. The defeated Tele and Hapa warriors blamed the Americans for the failure, and Captain Porter feared the tribes might attack Madisonville and massacre everyone. A logical solution would be for Captain Porter to sail away and resume his mission in the War of 1812. However, Porter began a U.S. Navy tradition where officers grow fond of a temporary naval base and decide to make it permanent. This required suppressing dangers, so he ordered a second mission to defeat the Typees. The Tele tribe agreed to join an overland surprise attack through the mountains. After a 2-day march, they attacked from high ground and won, mostly by burning 24 villages that refused to surrender, killing many women and children in the process. By December 1813, the USS Essex was ready to sail to continue raiding, but Captain Porter wanted to garrison the U.S. Navy's first overseas base. 4 of the whalers were left behind with 20 men under the command of Marine Lieutenant John Gamble. After a long voyage, the Essex made a brief stop at the neutral Chilean port of Valparaiso. The whalers were released to sail home but were soon recaptured by the British. The British were looking for the Essex and quickly learned of her location. 2 British frigates arrived and docked at Valparaiso with plans to attack the Essex once she set sail. Captain Porter was confident that his ship was superior and eventually set sail. This led to the Battle of Valparaiso on March 28, 1814, where the Americans were easily defeated, suffering 58 dead and 65 wounded. The Essex was captured and Captain Porter and his surviving crew taken prisoner. The situation was quiet back at Madisonville until May, when 6 British volunteers among Lieutenant Gamble's garrison mutinied. They seized a whaler and left the island. The local Tele noticed Madisonville was occupied by just a dozen Americans with lots of interesting treasures. They attacked and killed 6 sailors on the beach. With only 8 men remaining, Lieutenant Gamble ordered them to board a whaler, and they sailed toward Hawaii, where they were captured by the British. Ships from the Royal Navy arrived at Nuku Hiva a few months later to investigate and found Madisonville burned and looted. This ended America's first naval base and colony. The effort had begun with the dispatch of an American frigate to combat British piracy in the Pacific. It evolved into an effort to establish a naval base and engage in senseless tribal wars. Such deviations are common in American military history and is known as mission creep and nation building today. American forces dispatched to perform a clear mission become engaged in something far beyond their original mission. What began as a short mission to employ force caused complications that rarely ended well.